All right, guys, what is going on? We are doing something special today, and that special thing is we're going to be looking at some creepy pastas. I don't normally do this because I don't like creepy pastas. I think they're dumb. But while I was looking through something, looking for something to read last night, I came across this giant collection of creepy pastas, or as it's called, Creepypasta Ruin Your Childhood, which I assume means creepy pastas that will ruin your childhood. And I have to say, my childhood has not been ruined, but we are going to take a look at some of these because honestly, they are very interesting. I have to give credit to some of these creepypasta writers because they put so much effort into making these sound real when they are obviously bullshit. But let's get into this. The first one is about Recess. Recess is awesome, by the way. Great. One of my favorite Disney cartoons. So I'm liking this. Recess, an episode gone horribly wrong. So let's start this. I don't know. I do not know how the tape came into my possession. All I know is that I found it in one of my drawers while I was clearing them out in preparation for moving to a new house. It was a VHS tape with a plain white label. Recess slash R1109 new slash return to see you was written on it in a thin black permanent marker. Whoever wrote it had very poor penmanship. It was barely legible. Like anyone who has watched Recess as a child, nostalgia overcame me. I placed the tape in my old VCR and pressed play. It began with a bright blue screen. It stayed like that for a few minutes, and then started flashing red. 30 seconds later, it cut to black. Thinking that the tape was wrecked, I went over to press eject. Before I reached the button, the Recess opening started, albeit with really poor compression quality. The video was blurry, the audio was muddy, but I kept watching to see if anything weird would happen. The episode "The Rules" started and began playing out like the television broadcast version. Since the previous owner apparently took poor care of this tape, the vertical hold became progressively worse as it went on. Another thing that was off was the voice acting. The voices seemed to randomly fluctuate in quality, even in the middle of a sentence. For example, in one sentence, Gus would sound like himself, and the next he would sound like the voice actor really didn't want to be there. The animation was technically sound, with the exception of some of the facial expressions. In certain scenes, the main character's faces did not match the emotions that they were trying to convey. In these particular scenes, TJ looked angry, Vince looked tired, Spinetta looked anxious, Gretchen looked depressed, Mikey looked high, complete with bloodshot eyes, and Gus looked like as if he genuinely hated everyone around him. And I gotta give credit to some of these creepypasta writers. They put so much detail into like the story, like with the imagery and the story behind how they came into possession of it, what their feeling was watching it, even though it's complete bullshit. Like this did not happen, and you'll see what I mean the more I read into this. A couple minutes in, the episode completely jumped the tracks and went insane. At the scene where Vince was ordered to go into the dumpster to find a piece of fruit, it was taking him longer to find it than it should have. Then the sound of a garbage truck pulling up could be heard. Um, guys, Gus said. Everyone turned around and saw the garbage truck. Everyone except TJ ran. TJ tried to help Vince get out, but I thought he didn't run. I must not remember where this came from because unless TJ was there next to him, like why would he not? Why would he not have run there? And if he was, especially if he's going to help him, that's very weird. But whatever. TJ tried to help get Vince out, but eventually failed and ran away. The garbage truck picked up the dumpster and emptied its contents, including Vince, and began to crush them. Vince's screams in the scene sounded incredibly genuine, like the person doing this voice was actually being crushed to death. This whole time, everyone was looking on in shock. When the screaming ceased, Randall began crying for a moment and ran off yelling, "Miss Finster!" like he always did. I love Randall. He was great. Everyone else started crying. The screen faded to black. 30 seconds later, the scene abruptly cut to TJ walking home with his hand over his eyes. There was no sound at all for this part. The animation had really dropped in quality, like it was done by someone in their basement as opposed to a professional animation studio. It was focused on TJ walking down on the long road for a couple of minutes, with the vertical hold getting worse the whole time. I don't know what a vertical hold is. I'm not an animation genius, so I don't know what that is. So somebody please enlighten me what a vertical hold is, because I have no earthly idea what that is. After a while, it cut to TJ lying in bed, crying quietly. It was quite genuine, too. I could really hear the pain in his voice. Rather than cutting to black, after the scene ended, it showed the remaining 5 students walking to school in the rain. None of them cared about the rain. In addition to some cuts and bruises, Mikey looked even more bloated than usual. Gretchen's glasses were shattered, Spinelli's hair was dirty and all over the place. Gus was wearing a black sweatshirt as opposed to his usual getup. TJ's hat was on with the bill facing forward. That's how you know shit's real, when TJ wears his hat by the front and not the back. Shit's real. They were all incredibly depressed. The vertical hold was so bad at this point that I could barely tell what was going on. It looked like the remaining children were just sitting in class, occasionally cutting to an empty desk. Finally, the vertical hold could just use one finally there. Could have picked either one. I don't know why I used both, but whatever. Finally calmed down to the point where I could see. The depressing, mundane atmosphere went on until Gus pulled out a pen. He rammed it through his eye. Oh my god, that sounds like a terrible way to commit suicide. TJ tried to stop him, but Gus ended up bleeding out until he fell over dead. Blood continuously dripped down his desk and pooled onto the floor. Nobody else seemed to care. Man, this school fucking sucks then. Jesus. Everyone went to lunch after that class. Mikey engorged himself on whatever he could find until eventually he grabbed his chest and rolled around on the floor screaming. Ultimately, his eyes rolled back to his head. He twitched once and stopped moving. TJ barely tried to help this time. Nevertheless, he still became more depressed after Mikey died. Jesus, what the fuck did he eat? Well, it sounds like he ate everything, so maybe he just died from being so fucking unhealthy. I don't know. The scene cut to the playground again. TJ and Spinelli were kicking a can back and forth, both expressing minimal interest in what they were doing. They looked as if they were on the verge of killing themselves. Gretchen silently walked past him and began climbing up Boulder Rusty. When she was at the top, she got ready to jump off. What was especially strange was that instead of looking depressed, the kids at the playground, with the exception of TJ and Spinelli, were shouting angrily at Gretchen. What? Most of them were chanting, "Do it! Jump!" or something similar. Oh my god. Randall called Miss Finster, even she came over and joined in the chanting. Why? That's so fucked up. They always try to make these fucking fake creepypastas sound as fucked up as possible, and I have no idea. I have no idea why. It's ridiculous, and I'm smiling so much because it's so funny. We've got to stop her, yelled TJ as he and Spinelli ran over and climbed to the top. TJ tried to get Spinelli to help pull Gretchen to safety inside of the platform at the top of Old Rusty. Instead, however, Spinelli simply glanced at him with a pained facial expression. She then stood up next to Gretchen, pulled a rope out of her pocket, and tied their ankles together. Okay. TJ begged and pleaded to them. Don't do it. Come back inside. Gretchen and Spinelli looked at each other, closed their eyes, and jumped off. They splattered into bloody bits when they hit the asphalt. TJ leaned onto the bar and began loudly sobbing. The crowd below was becoming angrier still, despite being covered in the blood of Gretchen and Spinelli. Jesus, these people are bloodthirsty. What the fuck? The crowd began screaming, "Jump, fucker! Do it!" I'm not saying that. Do it, F word! Come on, you little bitch! And other phrases to that effect. TJ just curled up and covered his face. When the bell rang, everyone but TJ went inside. The screen went black for several minutes. After a few moments of fast-forwarding to see if there was anything else, the screen faded into TJ sitting on the edge of his bed crying. There was an ambient sound of what I recognized as a tornado off in the distance, though outside of the window everything appeared normal. Throughout the scene, the tornado sound got louder, and TJ's crying got even more pained. Eventually, the tornado sound stopped. TJ lifted up a handgun from under his pillow, aimed it at his temple, and closed his eyes. After one more tear slipped out, he pulled the trigger. Photorealistic blood and brain splattered all over the bed and wall behind him. The scene held on TJ's corpse for a few more seconds until the tape abruptly cut to black. I heard what sounded like a telephone dialing, then the tape stopped completely. I sold the damn thing on eBay. I never wanted to see it again. Maybe the guy who bought it will upload it to YouTube or something, but I did not even want to watch it a second time to capture the footage. One time was all I needed to get every detail. I do not know if the Reese's production crew made this as some sort of sick joke or if it was made by some guy with too much time on his hands, but I do not give a damn anymore. I just didn't want to see it again. I will never be able to watch Reese's the same way again. Oh my god, fucking overdramatic much. So that was it. That was the first of many creepypastas in this little fanfiction here. And I will be going over the next one, which I think is the Max and Ruby one. I'm gonna let me actually check again. Hold on, let me. Yeah, it's the Max and Ruby one actually. I heard that one's a very popular one, so that'll be fun to go over. But until then, I'll see you guys next time. Remember, I'm watching.